We are live, UFC 303. Shama, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka is in the books, and man, what an absolute knockout to end the night. And overall, maybe not the fight card that we were anticipating, but an exclamation point at the end really just caps it off. It got me out of my seat. Sure, it did get everybody else out of their seat as well, but the night was filled with a lot of surprises. Dan Ige on 4 3-hour notice taking a fight against Diego Lopez. That's something we've never seen before in UFC history. Is a guy waking up, he's getting a massage, and steps up for a co-main event for one of the fight cards that have been the craziest, most changed around fights. We saw Roman Dolidze versus Alex Smith, which started off as Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill. So the whole night was absolutely crazy. Ended with Poatan putting his foot back together after head kicking Jiri Prochazka. But enough about me. We got two beautiful gentlemen with me. We got Blake Schneiders and we got Mr. Johan Blanco joining us as well. And Blake, I'm going to let you kick it off, my man. Alex Pereira comes in, steps in, saves UFC 300, steps in again, saves UFC 303. Thoughts tonight on his performance and reaction to his head kick knockout?
What can you say? Alex Pereira came in and did exactly what he should have done. And I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed. I was really hoping the first fight between these two was actually really good. There was a little bit of a questionable stoppage, depending on what camp you're in from the first fight. A lot of people said he was out. I mean, Jiri did say himself was out from that first fight. I think a lot of people were like, well, I think he could have kept going. And he even said, I probably could have kept going, but he was out. So he admitted it. So he was out. Wash my hands with that. He was out. This fight wasn't even fucking close. He dropped him at the very end of the first round with a nice left hook or with a nice left and came into the second round. And he's like, yeah, let me just head kick your dumbass. And he did. And it was over. Like there was no pushback from Jiri, the Zen samurai that we know him as. And that, unfortunately, as much as I would love to say that this was an excellent battle from Alex Pereira. I mean, this was tactician. This was absolutely perfect. It was what he had to do. But this didn't really make the capper for what this entire card was kind of pronounced to be. Little underwhelming. I'm not going to lie, guys. The whole thing was a little underwhelming for me. And if I say a little, I kind of mean a lot. I was very underwhelmed with this entire card. We're going to go through all of it, but Alex Pereira, goddamn, dude, he is something special. He might be an alien. His face is like what they found on that island with those headstones that stick up out of the ground. Like, that's what he looks like, his chiseled jaw. The dude, he's got Aztec descent probably. Like, he is a warrior in and out, and he did it like he should have. He noticed a weakness, took advantage of it, got the knockout. Jiri didn't put up any bit of a fight or a struggle, and I was a little disappointed on his part, but on Alex Pereira's part, it was an absolute technician battle, and it was awesome. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Easter Island. That's what I'm looking for. Easter Island heads. He looks like the people that were born on Easter Island. That's crazy.
I mean, shout out to Daniel Jason to say, call Jamal Hill ASAP. We need his opinion. I'm pretty sure he might have been live for the UFC 303 and watching it on his channel. I think some people were saying his reactions. I do agree with you, though. I expected a little more from Jiri Prochazka. I thought the first fight he had Alex in a lot more danger. But tonight, Alex just seemed to have everything under control, right? And to your point, right, you'd want to see a little more pushback. For Alex, the performance was nearly flawless. Low kicks to start off the game to get him going. Kicks at all levels really was just doing the job. And like you said, at the end of the first round, right at the buzzer, beautiful left hook, patented, gets it done. And in the first 10 seconds of the second round, switch kick right to the top, the hands down style of Jiri Prochazka.
Beautiful, by the way. It was beautiful.
Beautiful kick, no telegraph. And that hands down style of Jiri Prochazka came to his detriment, right? He's able to do it with everybody else. Alexander Rakic, he was essentially headbutting his punches. You can't do that against Alex Pereira. And Jiri Prochazka, the stare down, best stare down of all time, did not lead up to maybe the best fight or to the pushback that we see. We got a couple people here giving us likes already. Jaron Turner saying, what a time to be alive. Man, Poatan stepping up and saving these events is definitely something that's going to be looked on for future reference. Like when we look back for the career of Alex Pereira, this is going to be remembered. And I think what's really exciting is the potential of seeing him at heavyweight. Like that's something that, Joe Rogan really did his job as kind of like a half promoter in that position. He promoted Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight because he asked Alex, what's next? And Alex didn't even entertain it. He's like, hey, I'll take what they give me at this point. But hey, he was like that in Conway. It was the beginning of the second round for that head kick knockout. But Joe Rogan was like, hey, people talked about you at heavyweight. How would you like that? And I, for one, would love to see Alex Pereira become the first 3-division heavyweight champ. Now, obviously, we're waiting for, you have to see what Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. That's the interim belt. You got John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the undisputed. When that's going to happen, we don't know. But Johan, my boy, I kept you quiet for long enough, brother. Thoughts on the fight tonight? Thoughts on the fight? And what do you think? I'll let you kick off to kind of the next topic. What do you think is next for Poatan Chama?
I'll tell you, Chama earned like plus 10,000 aura points with that finish. I'm telling you right now. Like, first off, that was the first strike he thrown in the second round. Like that was, insane. And I thought it was so quick. I thought it was a question mark kick because it was just so deceiving. I didn't see it coming like one bit. It was so flawless, so sharp. And, what impressed me most about Poatan was, his composure the entire time. He started off hot, but he never, like, even if you look at the slow-mo, when he countered him at the end of the first round with that hook, you could tell that he was just kind of measuring him and kind of reading him the entire time. The composure on this man is like no other. And honestly, like, again, like you to your point, he's saving cards. You know what I mean? He's known for saving cards. And because of that, he's becoming an even bigger star for the UFC, even possibly the biggest star currently. What was the question again? I got off track real quick.
Jaron Turner saying it next. Who's next? Who do you think is next for Poatan? And who do you want it to be?
Listen, I don't know. I think if he stays in the light heavyweight division and he wants to keep defending his belt, Magomed Ankalaev is a great, stylistic matchup. The only thing I have with that is, can Ankalaev really defend those leg kicks? We know he's very susceptible to that, and Poatan has the best in the division. So if he's not able to kind of defend that, and, I think Poatan can chop him down. But, I'm going to go with the people's choice. I think heavyweight is the next best move. And I think, honestly, the winner of Aspinall and Blades has to be it. I mean, think about it. This man is a star. This man's a star. And honestly, like, light heavyweight is not the sexiest division. Let's be honest. Light heavyweight is not the sexiest division. But when you move up to heavyweight, that is where the baddest man on the planet fight. If he's able to win a title, even if it is an interim title, if he's able to win a title at heavyweight, man, not only is he the baddest man on the planet, but he might have arguably one of the greatest, legacies and resumes in combat sports history. So I think Ankalaev is more logically next. But personally, I think he should move up to heavyweight and fight the winner of Aspinall and Blades.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you because potentially John Jones could fight Stipe, retire there, and that interim title just becomes promoted to an undisputed champion, right? Jaron Turner saying Poatan is a bad match or Ankalaev is a bad match for Poatan. I do think he is probably out of those top 5 in the light heavyweight, the toughest matchup of that, right? He's like, I don't think he still has that heavyweight. He's got to look and match up Adesanya. He should not move up. The thing is, Poatan has moved up and fight at heavyweight at Glory, right? Yeah. So he has had success against, Badr Hari, guys that are absolutely massive at heavyweight. So this isn't anything that's new to him, right? If you've watched Alex Pereira and, even being the Izzy fan that I am, watching him, come into the UFC and watching what he did previous to coming into that, if he is able to get the fight with Tom Aspinall, I do think that would be his biggest challenge to date because, I think when it comes to somebody being able to mix it up at both levels, I mean, Tom Aspinall, let's not sleep on this dude as well, right? This is a dude that easily knocked out people at the top of the division in heavyweight, right? This is someone that is currently the interim champ and is bred and born and as a pure mixed martial artist. His dad is essentially his coach, right? And he's able to mix it up really well. So I think that's kind of what would present that unique threat to Alex Pereira. So let's say, and I do agree with that, right? Of course, weight classes in UFC, it is a little different, right, compared to other weight classes and other organizations. But at least that power is going to translate, right? That's something that you kind of have a little more confidence in, is that the power would translate. Let's not forget, Pereira really was draining himself to make 185. So 205 is comfortable weight class. 220 or 225 plus could be that just be able to do that as well. Blake, thoughts on Poatan potentially moving up to heavyweight, and what would you see the matchup against him and Tom Aspinall? How would you see that going down?
Man, I'll tell you what. I think anybody moving up to heavyweight is it's a pedestal of division in the UFC. It is one of those where there has been names and legends born, bred, raised, and made in that heavyweight division. But as we've seen in recent years, the skill level in the heavyweight division has not been that great. Obviously, John Jones has made his way up to heavyweight. He is a complete outlier, okay? We cannot talk about John Jones and the UFC heavyweight divisions really in the same category because he's in his own camp, and I truly believe that. Now, Poatan, if he went up to heavyweight, and let's say for some odd reason John Jones fights Stipe Miocic and he doesn't retire, and he's like, hey, I want to take on the next best up-and-comer, and it would be Poatan. I still don't see that going in Poatan's favor. I can never bet against the man who, in my opinion, is the greatest mixed martial arts athlete of all time. I can't bet against him. Would it be an awesome fight that I would pay buku bucks to see? 100%. Are you kidding me? One of the deadliest men who fought in not only the lightweight division or the middleweight division, but now moving up to heavyweight, he's going bam, 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 multiple divisions, and just seamlessly fighting his way through it. I mean, like a samurai through butter. Okay, that's what Pereira really is doing. But I don't know how he would fare in the heavyweight division if John Jones was there. Now, you take John Jones out, Pereira versus Aspinall, I still think that's a big challenge because I think Aspinall is very good on the ground. And it still hasn't been proven to me that Pereira can hold his weight in that division. Well, one, in that division because we've never seen it, but two, in that division with somebody who's that heavy, with somebody who's that good on the ground. That's what I'm worried about. We saw what happened when Israel stepped up to light heavyweight and fought Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz didn't do anything incredible on the ground, and he's not an incredible ground striker or an incredible jiu-jitsu artist or anything, but he just used his weight to bully Israel Adesanya on the ground. Or are we going to see that with Alex Pereira when he gets up to the heavyweight division against somebody like Tom Aspinall, who is essentially he's very good on the ground. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that fight would go. I don't think it would be quite as easy. And honestly, I don't know if he pulls out the win. Obviously, he has the power to stay there. That division, I think Pereira has the power. He has not proven me wrong anywhere yet. That tells me that he doesn't have the power. It's the ground game that I'm just a little bit worried about, especially with some of the guys at the top of that division right now. You've got Tom Aspinall, you got Cyril Gane, you got Sergey Pavlovich. Those guys are just so big, man. Curtis Blades, he's so big, and his wrestling is outstanding. Like, where does he really stack up against those guys? On the feet, I don't have I don't have any issue. It's when they get to the ground, how much is that weight difference really going to play a factor in to where they're at? So that's my only worry. One other thing real quick. I know you asked Johan who he wants to see fight next in the light heavyweight division. Am I the only, and this might be controversial, I think I said it originally when it happened, I personally would like to see a little bit of a rematch versus Jamal Hill. I think that fight ended weirdly. It was a weird stop. It was a weird knockout. I would just like to see it confirmed that Pereira is better than Jamal Hill in a straight up no weird happenstance match. Now, I don't think that Jamal Hill's necessarily going to beat him, but I would like to see it without question. Am I the only one on that?
Yeah, I think
I
you
think
are.
we just. I think we just want to see,
John's just like, yeah, you're the only fucking one.
I think we just want to see him catch the arrow one more time. I think that's it.
Don't get me wrong. I think that, like you said, the ending was a little funky for that, but I don't think that fight goes.
I just didn't like it.
Yeah,
I want to see a flush win from Pereira against Hill. And again, I don't think Hill's going to beat him necessarily. I just want to see it without the little bit of poison in it. You know what I mean?
I understand that, but I think even without that little poison, I think it plays out the exact same because Jamal Hill was not really doing anything, and he also was a lot slower in that fight. You know, Pereira was kind of already putting those traps in before the low blow and that call. So even though, like, yes, that was kind of a little awkward, that trap was already set, and I already think if they do that again, it might go quicker just because.
Okay.
Just because Jamal Hill kind of fights the same way exactly. And even if he makes adjustments, it still caters towards how he fights, which is a bit flat-footed and a bit, kind of slow. And Pereira's just going to catch him. That being said, I see in the comments, some people talking about, he might be too small for heavyweight and stuff. But the real thing is he comes in after making weight close to 230. You know what I mean? That's rehydrating. So he walks around a little bit more than that. So he's already at heavyweight weight pretty much. And, we've already seen that his power not only translated from middleweight to light heavyweight, but that natural power is going to obviously translate to heavyweight because, there's such thing as God-given power. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The biggest example is in boxing. Manny Pacquiao is an 8-division world champion. That power translated pretty much all the way up until welterweight. That's the same exact thing with Alex Pereira. And I think, Tom Aspinall will be a tough opponent. And I don't think it's more of his ground game or like how technical he is. It's just because he will be the most intelligent person I think Pereira will fight because Tom Aspinall is a real thinker in that, even though he's very dangerous, we've seen him stop people like Sergey Pavlovich and stuff like that. But it's just his wits about him. He sets a lot of traps and, he's always thinking 3 steps ahead of things. So can Pereira, win a chess match against a chess player? That's the real question.
And I agree with you. And I will say to Andy Fuentes in the comments, he said, Pereira will be the GOAT. You can deny it all you want, but you will see. Here's the deal. Pereira, if he wants to be the GOAT per se, I mean, John Jones, in my opinion, is the GOAT. It's not Khabib Nurmagomedov, all right? It's John Jones. And the reason that is because John Jones has never lost a fight. Now, I understand Khabib has neither, but his resume isn't what John Jones is. And at that same time, he's already lost to Izzy. So it's like, how can you be the GOAT when you're 1-1 with somebody? And I get it. Like if he goes through and just demolishes everybody, maybe we can rehash that conversation. But I don't see him being the greatest. Now, is he one of the most polarizing people right now with how good he fucking is? 100%. No doubt. But will he be the GOAT? I don't know. We'll see. It remains. We'll see how long he goes.
Yeah, and I think that's the question is the longevity of it all, right? So, and Jason Karp saying Jones can take him on the floor, right? I do think that's the really big one, right? And Jaron Turner saying, he'll be great, definitely not the GOAT. It's hard to say. It's hard to compete in that GOAT conversation with any type of loss on your record, right? The only loss on Jon Jones' record is a disqualification from a 12-6 elbow, right? So really, he has no losses, and this dude has been fighting at the championship level since he was about 23 years old, I think he was, right?
He's also the youngest champion ever, and also in that loss, he was demolishing his opponent and broke his collarbone, and then they said that he lost the fight. So it's like one of those where it's like, yeah, okay, you technically got disqualified, but you beat the shit out of your opponent. Like,
yeah. And then Villatoro saying those children talking about MMA is crazy, and it's funny. But and like you said, it would be and Joey Nelson saying, yeah, Matt Hamill, the guy he was getting that. And then Darren Turner actually brought up a point I did want to bring up a little bit earlier. I appreciate you bringing it back up. Dana already shut down Alex Hill in the heavyweight, which kind of sucks, right? But we get to see Alex Pereira be the light heavyweight division king for a long time. For such a long time after Jon Jones left the light heavyweight division, that belt was just a hot potato.
Yeah.
Right. It was because of injury. And then you would see, hot potato between different fighters. And now you actually have a legitimate guy that can hold that belt for a long time. And Andy, we're not saying or disrespecting John or, Alex Pereira. I think, he could easily be one of the greatest fighters of all time. But when you're talking about GOAT conversation, you still have to think about GSP. You still have to think about, Mighty Mouse, right? There's still guys that are complete mixed martial artists in deep divisions, right? With all due respect, if you look past like the fourth ranking of, the light heavyweight division, it's kind of thin up there. It's a little thin. You got guys like Johnny Walker, obviously that ranking is going to change pretty soon at 7, Khalil Roundtree at 8, Rakic at 5, right? Guys that are getting pretty much beat by Jiri Prochazka right now. So the division's still a little thin. I want to see him against some stiff competition and continue to be himself because he is a superstar. Nobody's denying that right now. He is, as of right now, I think he's the most, the biggest name in MMA when it comes to outside of obviously your Conor McGregor, right? He's the guy that probably is drawing the most buzz because of what he's been able to do. Not just tonight, UFC 300, saving nights. And Blake, looks like you wanted to say something else.
Yeah, and let me just say, I think I overstepped when I was equating how many losses you had to what your GOAT status is, because I was comparing him directly to Jon Jones, who has no losses. I don't want to say that anybody who has losses can't be the GOAT, because that is a bad argument. That's like comparing the greatest.
GSP has losses.
Ever. Say that again.
GSP has lost. GSP has 2. He has.
That's what I'm saying. And when you
he's
brought
terrible
up GSP,
against Mats.
Yeah, when you brought up GSP, I was like, well, you know what? You're right. Like it's not how many losses you have, but it's who you beat. Who was the pedigree of the people that you beat? That's why Anderson Silva is considered one of the greatest. Now, does he have losses? Yeah, of course he does. But he is one of the greatest. You have Khabib Nurmagomedov. He doesn't have any losses. Can you question his record and who he fought? And really, you can question that a little bit. But technically, he's one of the greatest. Jon Jones, he is the greatest in my opinion. But so I think I overstepped a little bit by bringing in losses to that conversation. I'm sorry. That was all I was trying to say.
No, I definitely agree with you. And, I think the caps lock might be a little stuck on your keyboard.
He's 100% stuck, buddy. You can comment. I don't know if you're yelling at us, Andy, but it's okay if you are. I love the passion, brother.
We always love seeing it. We appreciate all the comments tonight. We got a fire audience up in here. We appreciate you. Jaron saying he's watching this on YouTube and on his phone at the same time. He's got
hell yeah, brother.
Double fisting us here tonight. But let's move on to this co-main event, guys.
Please don't fist me.
Because with this co-main event, it was not something we even expected coming into tonight, right? We expected Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez, but Brian Ortega, unfortunately, after having to be unable to make weight, right, changing the fight to 155, apparently he got a fever as well. Fever was like 103. He couldn't make the fight, and from there, that's when you had Dan Ige being a fucking legend and stepping up, saving the co-main event for this fight. Now, this fight card has fallen to shambles already. You lost Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, which could, obviously would have been a super entertaining fight. And then on top of that, you did have Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, which would have been fun as well.
Yeah.
and this card just fell to shambles. That fight ended up turning into Alex Smith versus Roman Dolidze, which we probably won't even entertain tonight. But I want to give a lot of credit to Dan Ige because although Diego Lopez won the fight and 29-28 crossed all scorecards, no doubt about it, easily won the first 2 rounds, lost that third round. Dan Ige, the fucking balls on that guy to go and put Diego Lopez in threat, like, under danger in that third round. And if he didn't actually go into the guard for of Diego Lopez, and Lopez didn't close that guard and hold him off, he could have potentially ended that fight, which is super exciting. So, Johan, I'll go to you on this one. What was your thoughts on Dan Ige stepping up and saving tonight, and just your reactions on the fight overall?
I mean, I think you got to commend him for that because, 3 hours notice, that man pretty much was about to watch it on his couch. Think about that. He was about to watch it on his couch before he got that call. So you have to commend him for that. But then the performance he put on, he didn't look like a fish out of water. Or he didn't look like he had no training camp. He looked like he was fight ready in that fight. Yes, he lost, rounds 1 and 2, but it wasn't anything real decisive. Yeah, he almost got caught in 2 submissions at the end of the first round, but that toughness and, kind of built in. And then obviously that third round, a majority of people gave it to Ige. You know what I mean? He kind of gassed Diego Lopez out, and, that groundwork, where Diego Lopez really shines, he was able to, kind of grind him out to get that round. So honestly, that's why, Dana White loves these types of fighters. Anybody that's willing to step up on short notice to, to save a card, to save a fight, who can't commend him? But honestly, there's going to be a big fight for Ige coming up without a doubt because, he really did, not only Dana White, but the UFC a favor.
Yeah, and this is it's almost like the Nate Diaz rule, right? If the fight goes 500 minutes, Ige would have actually won that fight. And then, Biba saying Diego wasn't impressive. He took a fight against a guy that he had no preparation against.
Yep.
Right. Dan Ige has 1-punch knockout power. And for the first 2 rounds, he was throwing a lot of, hooks into it. Yeah. Go ahead, Johan.
But not only that. So here's the thing about that. And I get it because I agree. Diego wasn't impressive. But on Thursday, Diego was 146. And then that night, he found out that it's a lightweight bout. So he had to, hydrate back up to 155 to make it a lightweight bout. And then literally 3 hours before his fight, he finds out it's a catch weight. And not only that, all the pressure's on him because he was already set to fight. Dan Ige was, kind of thrown in the lion's den and kind of had no pressure at all. So win or lose, he's losing nothing. There was a higher risk for, Diego Lopez. At the same time, Diego Lopez showed his toughness. I think he gave us, he was about to have a finish at the end of the first round. But that weight issue kind of messed up his cardio. But I think too, you got to give it to Ige. Ige really did put on the pressure, and he really did make it, a barn burner fight. So I kind of played devil's advocate. I kind of put, 1 and 2 together, but it was far from impressive, but there was a lot of circumstances that led up to this fight.
Yeah. And, Alex Fuentes is saying if you put the pressure earlier, he would have beat Lopez, but saving the fight for next month. I don't know if he's going to fight next month. I think that fight is probably going to have a replacement fighter fill in for that because they're going to reward Dan Ige. I do believe he's going to get a spot in the spear, as will Diego Lopez. Will probably get a fight for that in the spear as well. Jaron Turner saying, bro, straight Kumite shit. Blake, thoughts, my man.
No, I agree with a lot of what Johan said, and my part is imagine if you, and again, me coming from a football background, I like to use a lot of football analogies. So imagine if you were training all day for a running team. You're playing the Titans. Fucking Derrick Henry's going to run it down your throat. In the last second, all of a sudden they switch out the Titans for the Chiefs and it's Patrick Mahomes, and now you got to worry about throwing. So you thought it was going to be a ground game the whole time. So you're a little bit more worried about that because Brian Ortega is heavy on the ground, one of the greatest submission artists ever to step inside the octagon. And now you're worried about a guy who can knock your lights out, but you haven't trained for any of that on 3 hours notice. So what are you really going to do? So I'm not it wasn't unexpected that Diego Lopez didn't quite have a flush game plan. You know what I'm saying? Like it was not unexpected that he was going to be. He wasn't rattled by any means. He just didn't have the game plan that he really had trained for the last couple of weeks. So I totally understand why it wasn't considered impressive by Diego Lopez. He still went out there and he still put on a fight. I mean, there was a lot of things that Diego Lopez did really well. But when you're facing 50K Dan Ige, I mean, dude. Dan Ige comes to fucking brawl, brother. And I agree with Andy. If it would have been a 5-round fight, I think Dan Ige would have taken that fight. He really put the pressure on in the 3rd round. I thought he probably could have put it on a little bit more. Now, Diego Lopez, was it the 1st round or 2nd round that he really had him in that? He had him in that guillotine, not guillotine. He had him in the rear naked choke. And it looked dangerous. I mean, it looked real dangerous. And Dan did a really good job of fighting that off. Again, on 3 hours notice. The dude just got up off of his couch after a massage. Don't think it was a happy ending, but he got up.
He got paid today. That's a very happy
he got
ending.
paid today. He said, "I got a massage and I got paid." Fantastic.
You look at his watch. He had time today to come in the UFC and fight. Man, that's wild.
Exactly. So he came in and did exactly what he did, and guess what? Dan Ige almost won that fight. I can definitely see people seeing how it went for Ige. I don't agree, but I can see why you think that because I think he dominated that third round of that fight. So all hats off to Dan Ige. And I don't think it was an underwhelming performance by Diego. It was you can't really measure that when it's 3 hours notice and you're getting a completely different opponent.
Yeah, it's a really tough position to be in, and I think like we said, both guys are going to be rewarded. I think Diego Lopez. This is a very interesting topic here. And Johan, I'll let you kind of give this. How do you think this? Does this fight with him actually tiring out a little bit? Because Diego Lopez, he has the power, and he was throwing a lot of power shots in those first 2 rounds. Do you think because of maybe some of the experience that Brian brings to the cage? Do you think now, maybe more than before, you might see a little more issues in that? Or does that really not really, or does the performance tonight and him gassing out not really play into effect, like you said, just because of all the weight, fluctuation that went on to tonight?
Yes and no, because I think all the weight fluctuation did affect him a lot. And I think also Dan Ige, putting a lot of pressure on him did a lot of damage. But I also think too, yes, because, his last 3 victories, were about a minute and a half each. You know what I mean? He was only in in the last 3 fights, he's only been in their total cage time of over 3 minutes, and after that, you take a step up in fighting, a top 3 featherweight contender, and it's most likely not going to be ending in the first round. And, Brian Ortega, one of the best fighters making mid-round adjustments. You know what I mean? He has a tank on him, and he has a lot of heart. So, you fight a guy like that who has a lot of heart and you gas out, you could be in some deep trouble, especially on the ground. Because we all know Brian Ortega, magician on the ground, one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC. That being said, I don't know, because if it went how it went, if we actually had it at 145, it could have been a different thing because it would have been Diego Lopez's fight camp. He would have already been, cut. It would have been just kind of, smooth sailing. But that was a lot of complications. So it's yes and no, because I think too, it's just, since he's had all these early finishes, he needed this cage time because once the second round hits, it's just, sometimes that adrenaline just dumps. Sometimes your feet, feel like quicks or like sandbags, and you can't move them. They just feel real heavy. And I think he needed that experience. Because now he's going to fight these big guys. He's going to start fighting, the elite of the elite in featherweight. And, he needs to be able to just He needed that experience because sooner or later he's going to be fighting 5-round fights.
Yep.
And if he can't make it past 3 rounds, people are going to take him into those deep waters.
I think tonight might have been a blessing in disguise for Diego Lopez. It really could have been that. But, we're going to talk a lot about Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. It was a fight. Okay, Macy Chiasson versus Mayra Bueno Silva. That was actually a good fight. If you guys got to watch that one until it ended there. Unfortunately, Macy Chiasson with a beautiful elbow from the top. But honestly, Mayra Bueno Silva, what an absolute dog. She was winning the fight, honestly, landing the damaging strikes, but she got that cut over her eye that was bleeding all over the floor. Blake, thoughts on the dog that we saw in Mayra Bueno Silva, who still wanted to keep that fight going? And just overall, I thought it was a really good fight.
Yeah, man, I thought it was a really good fight. I think Macy Chiasson did a lot of things. She had good positioning, but if you really want to speak to the dog and Mayra Bueno Silva, she was like, yeah, I know I'm gashed. I mean, I haven't seen a gash quite that bad since
Friday. Brendan Loughnane busted an absolute crazy knee on PFL.
Say what?
On Friday, Brendan Loughnane had an absolute crazy knee on the main event for PFL, and he busted his opponent's forehead wide open.
Did not see that, but that's one of those cuts that reminds me of the famous Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald fight when Lawler's lip was hanging off of his face. That's what it reminded me of. Like Mayra Bueno Silva was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm coming to fight you. And she even told the doctor, she said, no. I can see. We're good. She tried to push the doctor out of the way. And then she went over to Macy Chiasson and was like, yo, let's fight. Like, come on, let's do it. That to me, I mean, if you want to talk about some of the most badass women in the most badass sport in the world, like, dude, all hats off to her. She was ready to go. She didn't give a damn about her body. She didn't give a damn about what was happening. She wanted to fight. And honestly, do I agree with the doctor stoppage? I'm never going to agree with the doctor stoppage because if the fighter wants to fight, let him fight. And I didn't think that cut was significant enough to damage the fighter's health, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it was big, but it was on the forehead. You're fine. It wasn't like a cut to it wasn't like you exploded somebody's cauliflower ear,
yeah,
and their ear exploded. It wasn't like his nose could potentially, fucking destroy their face. It was just a cut above the eye. I thought they should have kept it going. I know I'm probably in the minority, but dude, all hats off to those women because they put on what, in my opinion, was one of the best fights in the main card.
Absolutely. Johan, any thoughts?
Yeah, and all I have to say to that is different commissions have different rules. You know what I mean? I mean, think about it like this. Diego Sanchez and Gilbert Melendez had a war, and Diego Sanchez had a gash that was like his whole eyebrow. His whole eyebrow was a gash. And that fight went the distance, So it's different commissions have different set of standards and stuff like that. But in terms of the fight, man, what a war for how long it lasted. You know what I mean? Mayra Bueno Silva, in round 1 landed 24 of 30 significant strikes, meaning that, Macy Chiasson only like evaded like 4 significant strikes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think undoubtedly she won that round. She won that round. And you could tell, like, especially on that inside work, the way that she was chopping the body down. I thought, eventually, if she wasn't taken to the ground in the second round, she could get the finish. But, things went how they went. We got a nasty elbow, a nice looking piece of art on her face, and that's how it ended. But in terms of the performance, I don't think any woman, or I don't think Mayra should hold her head down.
No.
It is a loss on her record. It might affect her ranking. She was number 3, close to a title shot, but I don't think it's going to hinder her because if she gets back on the winning track, I think she's already back in the title contention, already in the title picture.
Yeah, she has enough danger. She had to go through some learning experiences at the top of the division, but I think the threat is still there, and I think she is very much a threat in the division. I want to get into the MVP fight versus Ian Machado Gary because it was a good fight overall. Definitely I want to give credit to Gary for just learning the way he has. And this comment got me dead for some reason. But as far as the with Johan always bringing up the Venom, Cobra here, we see it right here, Johan. We see the Cobra sticking out here,
I don't know what you're talking about.
making his appearance. Trying to just slide in. We got multiple Cobras on stream here, but overall, we just need to get the main Cobra going from Santino Marella. However, getting into the actual fight, it was kind of just it wasn't the most interesting fight, if we're being honest, right? First round, Ian Gary took the fight to the ground. Good control, nothing really to it there. The second round was the most entertaining round. Michael Page able to keep the fight on the feet, landed some nice strikes. Ian Gary not able to close the distance, but in the third round, Michael MVP was able to end up on top, and then from there, scrambled back up. Ian Gary got on the back, kind of rode him out from the top there, ended it. Ian Gary's still undefeated, but still has a little bit more to be desired on the plate. Like, I want to see what out of him will really just kind of impress us. But overall, just good performance. Like, I think, just him being adaptable and growing with those guys in Brazil and just us seeing more of his ground game, I think that's a plus on his end. But I think when you're trying to, rally just a little more excitement from some of the fans, especially after his last fight not being as exciting as well, right? You want to see a little more out of these guys. So, Johan, just thoughts on that fight overall, and how did you view Ian Gary's performance, in the win tonight? Undoubtedly, in my opinion, and see people saying it could have gone both ways, and it really could have, because you had both guys having some ground control time in that third round, but the back control over the guard probably took prominence in that time. But Johan, thoughts on the MVP fight?
Well, listen, I think Ian Gary, the best way to describe him is Ian Gary talks like Conor McGregor, fights like John Fitch. Really, really, really melatonin, really boring. But, he is a dynamic striker when he can be. But in the past two fights, he's kind of taken a more conservative approach. That being said, he had to do what he had to do to win tonight because, early he thought he was going to be able to have the stand-up advantage and the speed advantage. Quickly realized that wasn't the case. So what did he do? He went to the ground. And once he went to the ground, you noticed that Michael Van Page was just a fish out of water, literally doing the wrong things you're not supposed to be doing, rolling the wrong way, rolling his neck into the arm. I thought he was going to get choked out. I thought his ankle was going to get popped out. But, Ian Gary played a conservative game plan. It was very, very, very hard, for Michael Van Page to get anything done. And, even though he won the second round and he could have won the third round, Ian Gary's grappling had to prove, to be the most important part of his game today. Stop it. And, that's pretty much it. I think, you could say the third round, but you really can't because Ian Gary was on his back the majority of the fight. The second half of the fight, he was on his back trying. I wouldn't even say trying to get the choke. He was just trying to maintain control because no matter what, even though it didn't look like he was doing anything, significant, Michael Van Page was doing nothing. He was trying to get him off his back and he really couldn't do anything. So overall, it might have not been the sexiest performance, but it's what he needed to do to get against a guy who was much faster, who was better on the feet, and, who could have really knocked his lights out.
Blake.
Goddamn, Johan, we need to stop having you on the show because you're taking on my goddamn talking points. No, I agree with almost everything you said there. One of the things that I love about MVP is the fact that because he's so tall, he does this thing where when he keeps his hands down by his side, he goats guys into getting into range where they shouldn't be. And I thought he did a pretty decent job of that when he was allowed to getting Ian Gary into his area to where he can outstrike him. You know what I mean? But Ian Gary is way better on the ground than Michael Van Page. It just is. But what I think Michael does a really good job at, like I said, he goats people into getting into that range of being in a danger zone that you're not expecting to be in, and you linger a little bit longer. Now, what he did not do was capitalize on that. What I thought Ian didn't do was capitalize every time he had a position. I think he waited a little too long on almost every submission. He waited just a little longer. He didn't attack. He did not feel that he was better and say, I'm going to take over this fight right now. He was waiting. He was waiting. And I just felt like that wasn't enough for Ian Machado Gary. I would have liked to see him say, guess what, motherfucker? This is not Bellator. This is the UFC. I'm going to take you over. And he just didn't quite do that. And I get it. Michael Venom Page is extremely dangerous, and he is. But there was plenty of times where I thought Ian had him in positions where he could have just gone for it, and he didn't. Is that a fault to Ian? A little bit. Is that a little bit of respect that he had for Venom Page? Maybe. I'm not quite sure. I would have liked to seen him finish Michael Venom Page, because it would have just solidified, okay, Ian is the real deal. He is what he promotes himself to be. He did what he did need to do at the end of the day. He did it. All right. And I'm not going to be mad at the end of the day, because I actually wasn't super excited for this fight originally when I saw it on paper. But once I saw those two step into the ring together, and I always forget how big Gary is. I always forget how big he actually is and how tall he is for that. But yeah, I was super excited once the fight popped off, and I thought he did what he needed to do. Like Johan said, he pretty much stole all my talking points. You mother. No, but no, I was a little disappointed, but at the end of the day, I agree with Johan. He did what he needed to do, and at the end of the day, he got the win.
Absolutely. So yeah, honestly, closing up here on the main card, honestly, not the best main card overall, but it did finish with a bang. And at least we got a good one looking up to next. We got a couple of good fights coming up in the future here soon. Honestly, the prelims were pretty solid, but I'll let Blake, I know I'll let you kick it off on this one. Favorite prelim of the night?
Ooh, not gonna lie, I had a busy day. I was at the Royals game, and I went and saw a local band here. One of my favorite prelims probably came from one of Fight Banana's own, Jillian Robertson against Michelle Waterson Gomez, the hottie, karate hottie. I thought Jillian went out there and put on a world-class performance.
Dominated.
Her grappling was outstanding. She controlled Michelle from beginning to end of that fight. And so I got to give my caps off to Jillian, because she looked really freaking good. And I believe now, if I'm not mistaken, Jillian now enters. Where's she at now?
I think she's at 13 now.
She's at 13 now?
Yeah.
I would not be disappointed if Jillian, not even disappointed. I would not be surprised if Jillian works her way into that top 10, because I think with what she's doing on the ground right now, is really freaking good. Her elbows were good. Her positioning was good. Her jiu-jitsu was fantastic. She controlled Michelle, who is a legend, who ended up retiring after. Jillian submitted her into retiring, essentially. Obviously didn't get the absolute finish, but, and don't get me wrong, I about shed a tear, because I love Karate Hottie. I love Michelle Waterson. She is one of the women that I watched coming up in this sport. She's not only a great person, a great fighter, but she is a great mother. And I almost shed a tear during her little her retirement saga that they gave her. But no, Jillian Robertson, man, she looked really good. So I've got to say that was one of my favorite prelims to watch.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, the emotional package there. Joey Nelson with a really good point. She's been in the game for a long time, nothing much to live for. And like you said, train up your daughter and live it up, right?
Yeah.
I think her husband put a really good point to her that she'd mentioned that, hey, even if you're not fighting in the cage, that doesn't mean you're still not fighting, right? There's
And
still
what a great quote. What a great quote, John. I loved that. Like, and I think that's probably what some fighters hang on to. But her husband hit it right on and hit the nail on the head. Just because you're not fighting in the cage doesn't mean you're not fighting. That was the part that almost got me.
No, it was a really great moment. Shout out to Michelle Watterson that she got there. And she was able to have a long tenured career, even though, like Jaron said, maybe didn't find that natural weight class, maybe didn't find exactly her footing in it, but she was one of the trailblazers in the division. Johan, if you were able to, any of your favorite prelims that you were able to catch tonight?
Yo, Joe Pyfer knocking out Mark Andre. Oh my goodness. If it wasn't for Poatan head kicking the lights out of Jiri Prochazka, that was the knockout of the night. I'm telling you, I was shocked. I was like, man, I was like, yo, if this is how we're ending the prelim, the main card's about to be a banger. And then it wasn't.
Hey, man, honestly, like you said, it really led up really well because you had, Andre Feely versus Cub Swanson, great fight. My personal favorite, was the Charles Jourdain versus Jean Silva. I really enjoyed the performance by Jean Silva. Not only that, how excited he looked just to be there. He was sitting next to Bruce Buffer just with teddy bear eyes looking at Bruce Buffer like the happiest man on earth. And, the team, what is it called? The Fighting Nerds, the nerd fighters, that they wear those glasses with Cal Baraglio, all those guys out there. They're doing something right, man, because he's the first person to put out Charles Jourdain, and I'm a big fan of Charles Jourdain as well. But, man, that was an excellent performance there. But also shout out to Peyton Talbot. Beautiful, pretty much just one, waited for the leg kick counter, and then two right down the middle to end it, dropped him, pretty much just there to end it off. Dude is undefeated. He's young. He's hungry. He's got some anime tattoos. So I'm a big fan already, and he's got the job done. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. We had a couple of bonuses. Blake, I know you were busy. Johan, I know as well. So I'm just gonna kind of list off a couple of the bonuses here.
No, let us guess.
All right, I'm gonna let you guess then. So Blake, I'll let you get first. We actually had let me close this ad that just popped up. That's great. We had 4 Performance of the Night awards and 1 Fight of the Night.
We had 4 performance awards and 1 fight of the night.
Yes, sir.
All right, so 1 performance award. I'm going to give to Joe Pyfer, obviously, for the knockout over Marc-Andre Bernal. I am also going to give a performance award to Peyton Talbot for the 19-second knockout on the first throw. I mean, I don't know how you don't give that guy a reward. I'm going to give one to Alex Pereira because he eviscerated anything that we thought about Jiri Prochazka. That last one's hard. It's going to be either a tie between Macy Chiasson or, honestly, I thought Jillian Roberts had a great evening. So I'm not quite sure where all those lie, but those are probably – was that 4?
Well, that was 5. You gave, which one's performance, which one's Fight of the Night?
Fight of the night. Oh, shit. Fight of the night. Oh, that's hard. Because, again, this, as much as it was – I'm going to give it to Joe Pyfer. Fight of the night for Joe Pyfer.
Johan, differences, changes, what do you like?
All right, performances. Ian Machado Gary, Anthony Smith, Jiri Prochazka, Mark Andrew. No, I'm joking.
I was like, what?
Everyone who got
Johan's
finished
out here trolling us.
Okay. So there was 4 performance of the night.
4 performance and 1 Fight of the Nights. Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna go Poatan. I mean, I think he's the clear-cut performance of the night. I think I would give it to Joe Pyfer. I mean, that knockout was lights out. So I think the 2 big knockouts were, I think those are good. I'll give it to Peyton Talbot because, I mean, it was a 19-second stoppage. 19 seconds. And I'll give the fourth one. It's a wild card. I'll give it to Dan Ige because he came in on 3 hours notice, and he performed above his expectation. I thought people thought he was gonna get stopped. So I'm gonna give him. You might be wrong, but I'm gonna give it to Dan Ige. And then fight of the night, I'm going Macy Chiasson versus Mayra Bueno Silva.
Gotcha. So Johan definitely got it closer on that one because he had one wrong and it was more misplaced. So Peyton Talbot got one. Both of you guys got that one. Alex Pereira got one. Joe Pfeiffer got one. Blake, what you said was Jillian Robertson got performance of the bonus. And then Johan, you said performance went to Dan Ige. Macy Chiasson got the performance bonus award. And the fight of the night went to, you guys actually didn't get to catch this one. It was Andre Touchy-Feely versus Cub Swanson.
Oh my God!
Really?
Yeah, which was a pretty good fight. Honestly, if you guys watched that fight, it was actually a pretty solid fight overall.
It was.
Fight of the night. Not sure. I think Chiasson versus Bueno Silva, for as long as it lasted, I would agree that's more so probably my fight of the night, but it didn't last all the whole way, so interesting. But hey, we had 5 different bonuses tonight. 6 fighters got paid. I'm sure Diego Lopez and Dan Ige got taken care of on the back end there, so no doubt about that. But closing thoughts, we'll let you Blake start us off on closing thoughts, buddy.
Sorry, my dog is taking over the stream all of a sudden. But closing thoughts for the night. 303, for all it was hyped up to be originally on the outset, didn't meet my expectations the way I would have liked, but I'm not a negative Nancy, so I'm going to go with what we saw tonight. I really liked the fights that we saw from Cub Swanson and Andre Feely. Was a really good fight. I loved what Jillian Robertson did. She came out and did her job and absolutely sat on Michelle Watterson during her. You never want to see anybody lose during their retirement fight, but as somebody who's a partner of the show, I was happy about it. You go over to the main card, Alex Pereira. I mean, dude, he's one of the most dangerous guys in the UFC right now, and there is absolutely no question about it. Dan Ige stepping up against Diego Lopez. The guy took the fight on 3 hours' notice. You cannot tell me that Dan Ige is not one of the hardest, most badass pipe-hitting mofos in this entire division, okay? You're not going to convince me. Mayra Bueno Silva and Macy Chiasson fight was fantastic. I would have loved to seen it keep going. It didn't. Both those ladies, round of applause for both of them. Ian Machito, Gary, I want to see a little bit more, but you did what you had to do. Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't think Anthony Smith is worth watching fight. I'm sorry. He never – his potential has always been here.
Last fight he shut down Vitor Petrino, which was he was a crazy underdog in that fight. Jumped the guillotine, got it. You know what I mean? So
say that again.
I don't. He's a gatekeeper. You know what I mean? At this point, so
is he though? But is he though?
I mean, yeah.
I've never been impressed with anything he's done. He's never been impressive.
Yeah, but he was a title challenger.
Yeah, and it wasn't impressive. It's never been impressive. Tell me one thing Anthony Smith has done that's been impressive, and I'll call you a liar. He's always been his name has always been there. He's never.
He beat Alexander Gustafsson in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, he's got good wins. You go back. It's like he never lost 2 fights in a row before. More than 2 fights in a row. Sorry.
But I'm sorry. It just
But then it's a perfect definition of a gatekeeper.
Okay. Well, then guess what? I'm over his gatekeeping ass. I'm over it. I don't want to see it no more. I'm sorry, Anthony.
It was a boring fight. We're not saying that it wasn't a boring fight. It was definitely a boring fight.
Hang out and talk about it. Don't do it.
All right. Johan, final thoughts, buddy.
Listen, for everything that happened, leading up to UFC 303, this was expected to be a shit show. Let's just be honest. I mean, we were originally supposed to get the return of Conor McGregor, and we ended up getting Dan Ige versus Diego Lopez. Now, that might not sound enticing on paper, but the UFC was able to. There's been a lot worse UFC cards that were actually planned. You know what I mean? So I don't over.
Yes.
More like a door. Hey, it is what it is. Anthony Smith, the doorman. That being said, I think it was an okay card. You know, I think Poatan's stoppage really saved that main card, but the prelims were very exciting, and you have to give credit to that. The UFC card is not just the pay-per-view. People have to understand that. You have take some time to watch the prelims, because those prelims are sometimes the most exciting part of the card.
Watch the goddamn prelims.
That's what I'm saying. Show love to the fighters that are up and coming, because at the end of the day, those guys are most likely going to be at the top in 2 or 3 years. That being said, listen, UFC 303 is in the books. Next month, I'm going to put on my top hat. I'm going to sip my cup of tea, because we're going to Manchester, mate. And hopefully I don't see John Fitzgerald there, because I will go take a melatonin and fall asleep.
Hey, man, I don't think you could say it a lot better. We got Edwards versus Muhammad 2 is going to be an exciting one. They're doing my dogs in England super dirty, making them wait up to like 7 a.m. to see that fight. But, hey.
America, baby.
America, USA. That's July 4th coming up, baby. Happy July 4th to everybody. That's make sure you guys that are all safe out there that are watching. As Blake continues to look like it's jerking off on the side there, but okay, he's petting his dog. Gotcha. He's got some peanut butter on the willy at his point. But make sure you guys check out the stream as always. Hey, we had plenty of love in the comments. Make sure we appreciate you guys just checking us out. Jerron, appreciate you, brother. Joey, Biba. Who else was here? Andy Fuentes, appreciate the passion as well. Everybody that was in here, guys, we really appreciate you. Just showing some love, making the show a lot more fun, interacting with us. That's what it's all about. We're not out there in UFC land and over there with John Anik, which would be nice, but we're out here just having some fun. We're getting to talk about these fights, and you guys are just making it a lot better. So we really appreciate the love, guys. Make sure you guys, if you're not already, follow. You see the names underneath, so just make sure you guys do all that stuff. But until next time, we'll keep you guys out, and